Numbers.
I forgot something.
Yeah, right. You get the, you'll be able to I'm not doing that. I'm doing these all the time, and I'm just like, you know what? When I didn't,
It's a shame. And then you're a little tracker. That was good.
so now, so we're,
The time changed.
well,
Texas.
I mean, I get it, you know, consciousness, and I mean, having each other on their time, it's not what, you know what I mean? And you feel like it's stupid, no, so we're, yeah, so those go out for us on Friday, December 1, I give you a month.
I don't have the bandwidth.
Give you as much time as I can.
Yeah, so now you have to do crash, and you're waiting at
And double check. No, once it's coming, hand delivered. That's right.
That part?
I think it. Our pipes are made sense. Our pipe is very nice. Not in the eastern home, but maybe that's what we should get a job. Maybe I just tell one of the hip coaches, we'll put the pipe in. Exactly.
I'm ready whenever you are, Russ. You give me the high sign. All right. Okay, hold on. Good evening. I'd like to call the regular Borough Council meeting of October 24th, 2022 to order. This meeting has been properly advertised in the Home News Tribune of January 7th, 2022, according to Public Law 1975, Chapter 231. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Zambrana.
Here.
Councilwoman Newbauer.
Here.
Councilwoman O'Donnell.
Here.
Councilman Peretti.
Here.
And for the record, Councilman Potter is out of town on an excused absence. And Councilman Revelinsky.
Here.
Thank you. Please stand and join me in a moment of silence, followed by a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we're gonna have a proclamation in a minute, but we're waiting for the guest of honor to get here, so we will move on to the approval of minutes first. So may I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from October 11th, 2022?
I move that we approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Any comments or corrections?
Being absent, I'll be abstaining from the vote.
Okay.
Same here.
Okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
Abstain?
Aye.
Aye.
No? Okay. We'll move on to, should we go on to the resolutions maybe? It's not going to take that long, right?
I would take it through the bill list maybe, and then stop at the introduction of
Okay.
the full consent agenda.
Sounds good. All right, so we'll go on to bills and claims. Will the clerk please read by title only the bill resolution 232, 2022?
Resolution 232, 2022 is authorizing the payment of bills, claims, and statements against the Borough of Milltown in the total amount of $764,205.10.
You've heard the reading of this resolution. What is your pleasure?
Move that the resolution be adopted.
I have a motion by Councilman Revelinsky, second by Council President Zambrana. Any comments? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Zambrana?
Aye.
Councilwoman Newbauer?
Aye.
Councilman O'Donnell?
Aye.
Councilman Peretti?
Aye.
And Councilman Revelinsky?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. What do you think, Mean?
Yeah, I would say,
Shall I
yeah, you're
start?
gonna need to jump back to the comments from the audience, though, on resolutions first, right before the bill list.
All right, so I'll go back to comments from the audience. Next on the agenda is comments from the audience. If any member of the public wishes to speak on any of the resolutions, please identify yourself to the clerk and say your name and address for the record. These comments are limited to resolutions listed on the agenda. Seeing none, I will close audience comments and move on to, hold on, sorry, the introduction of resolutions. When voting on resolutions, all matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and, having been reviewed by the Borough Council, will be enacted by one motion. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any council member, and if so removed, it will be treated as a separate matter. Any items requiring expenditure are supported by a certification of availability of funds. Are there any questions, or does any council person want to pull any resolutions from the consent agenda? Okay, there being no request to pull any resolutions, will the clerk please read the consent resolution?
Whereas pursuant to the rules of council, the council may establish a consent agenda for any regular or special meeting, and whereas the Borough Clerk has posted a consent agenda for this meeting. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Borough Council of the Borough of Milltown, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, that the consent agenda previously prepared by the Borough Clerk be approved without the necessity of having the individual resolutions read by the Borough Clerk.
You've heard the reading of this resolution. What is your pleasure?
Move that this resolution be adopted.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Revelinsky, second by Councilwoman Newbauer. Any discussion? Oh, I'm sorry.
Who's Margaret? Well done.
Oh, didn't I say that? I'm sorry, I meant to say O'Donnell. Sorry. Temporary lapse there. Sorry, Councilwoman O'Donnell, second. Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Zambrana.
Aye.
Councilwoman Newbauer.
Aye.
Councilman O'Donnell.
Aye.
Councilman Peretti.
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky.
Aye.
Motion carries to adopt resolutions 233, 2022 through 242.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll go on to an ordinance, public hearing and adoption. This is the public hearing for ordinance 22-15-16, and since introduction, full copies of ordinance 22-15-16 are presently posted on the Borough website, on the bulletin board at Borough Hall, and are available at no cost in the office of the municipal clerk between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. Clerk Marler, will you please read the ordinance by title only?
22-15-16, an ordinance of the Borough Council of the Borough of Milltown amending the redevelopment plan known as the Milltown Ford Avenue redevelopment plan.
May I have a motion and a second to open the public hearing of ordinance 22-15-16?
Make a motion to open the public hearing?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Newbauer, second by Councilman Peretti. The public hearing of 22-15-16 is now open to any member of the public who wishes to speak on ordinance 22-15-16. Seeing none, I will ask for a motion and a second to close the public hearing for ordinance 22-15-16.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Revelinsky, second by Councilwoman O'Donnell. The public hearing for ordinance 22-15-16 is now closed. So then I'll ask for a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 22-15-16.
So moved?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Peretti, second by Councilman Revelinsky. Any further comments or questions from the council? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Zambrana?
Aye.
Councilman Newbauer?
Aye.
Councilman O'Donnell?
Aye.
Councilman Peretti?
Aye.
Councilman Potter? Oh, I'm sorry. And Councilman Revelinsky?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So now, before we go into the ordinance introductions, we'll go back to the proclamation and presentation. So I'm going to come down to the podium if the folks want to join me. This is the celebration of St. Paul's Church 150th anniversary. So it's they had a nice celebration on Saturday where I got to present them, but we invited them here so that everybody at home could get a little history of St. Paul's and we could prolong the celebration. So if anyone, Pastor Matt and all of the organizing committee wants to come up here, you can get on TV, you can get a picture. Is that all right?
Yeah, just turn the mic around.
Can you hear me? If you'll bear with me, there's a lot of whereases, but it's a good history of of St. Paul. So this is the official proclamation. Whereas the Borough of Milltown Mayor and Council would like to extend their congratulations to St. Paul's United Church of Christ on their 150th anniversary. And whereas St. Paul's humble beginnings began in 1847 when German immigrants settled in Milltown, New Jersey, and wanted a church in their own language. The first services were held at the United Methodist Church in Milltown. The church first called Reverend Dr. C. Banks as its first pastor. Whereas, on August 1st, 1872, 22 people signed a document stating that their wish to become a separate church from the Methodist Church. On October 15, 1872, a resolution was passed to officially form St. Paul's. Work then began to raise money and build a new church building in Milltown. Whereas in 1921, the original St. Paul's wooden structure was moved to the rear of the property where the education building now sits and Good Day Preschool meets. This wooden structure was moved to build the brick building that is now on the property. Volunteers of St. Paul's carted the bricks from the railroad yard to the church to help build the building. And whereas in 1924, Reverend Chatlos started English services, and over the next several decades under Reverend Chatlos, Reverend S.R. Brenner, and Reverend Custer, membership grew to nearly 1,000. The church had multiple Sunday morning services, a full Sunday school program, and saw many lives changed through the church living out Jesus' love in the community. And whereas Reverend Mervyn Gerhardt started at St. Paul's as an associate pastor in 1961, who became the senior minister 2 years later when Reverend Custer resigned to take a new pastorate. Under Reverend Gerhardt's leadership, women were able to lead as elders and deacons on the consistory, and the Women's Guild was expanded. Whereas in 1993, Reverend Richard Wire began his 26 years of leadership at St. Paul's. Reverend Wire emphasized children and youth through starting a weekly kids sermon and expanding the youth ministry. Reverend Wire also spearheaded many fundraising efforts to help restore an aging building. Reverend Wire was instrumental in starting a blended worship service combining contemporary and traditional elements. And whereas in 2020, Reverend Dr. Matt Murphy began at St. Paul's just a few weeks before the global pandemic hit our country. Reverend Murphy led St. Paul's through the pandemic, bringing a robust online service, expanding the technology at St. Paul's, creative outdoor services to begin meeting in person during the pandemic, and meeting practical community needs in the town of Milltown. Reverend Murphy has focused on St. Paul's on living out Jesus' love in our community through focusing on Jesus in weekly communion, caring for the marginalized, welcoming the stranger, creating a welcoming environment at St. Paul's for all humans, and seeking equity for all, just like Jesus. Now, therefore, I, Trina Mayer, Mayor of the Borough of Milltown, do hereby congratulate St. Paul's Church for their 150 years of service to our town. In witness thereof, I hereto set my hand and cause the official seal of the Borough of Milltown to be affixed on this 22nd day of October, 2022. So congratulations to all of
Thank you, everybody.
And one more proclamation. Thanks for coming. Congratulations. Thanks for your service to the borough.
Am I supposed to be standing up?
Bye, guys.
3 weeks ago, that's why I wasn't there so last
I was fine, so.
Okay, now back to our regularly scheduled programming is the ordinance introduction. There will be no public input on introduction of ordinance 22-1517. The introduction summary will be published in the Home News Tribune on October 28, 2022, and second reading, public hearing, and final adoption will be considered on November 14, 2022. Full copies of the ordinance will be posted on the Borough website, on the bulletin board at the Municipal Building, and available at no cost in the office of the Municipal Clerk between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. Clerk Marler, will you please read the ordinance by title only?
22-15-17, an ordinance to add Chapter 2, Administration, Article 13, Nepotism Policy of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Milltown, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, to include a policy regulating nepotism within the Borough of Milltown.
May I have a motion and a second to introduce ordinance 22-15-17?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Newbauer, second by Councilwoman O'Donnell. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Zambrana,
Aye.
Councilman Newbauer,
Aye.
Councilman O'Donnell,
Aye.
Councilman Peretti,
Aye.
and Councilman Revelinsky.
Aye.
Motion carries to introduce.
Okay. There will be no public input on the introduction of ordinance 22-15-18. The introduction summary will be published in the Home News Tribune on October 28, 2022, and second reading, public hearing, and final adoption will be considered on November 14, 2022. Full copies of the ordinance will be posted on the Borough website, on the bulletin board at the Municipal Building, and available at no cost in the office of the Municipal Clerk between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 4 p.m., Monday through Friday. Will the clerk please read the ordinance by title only?
22-15-18, ordinance of the Borough of Milltown, County of Middlesex, and State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 11 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Milltown, specifically Section 11-10.1, to provide administration with the discretion to hire entry-level police officers pursuant to NJSA 11A 4-1.3.
May I have a motion and a second to introduce ordinance 22-15-18?
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Revelinsky, second by Councilwoman Newbauer. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Zambrana,
Aye.
Councilman Newbauer,
Aye.
Councilwoman O'Donnell,
Aye.
Councilman Peretti,
Aye.
and Councilman Revelinsky.
Aye.
Motion carries to introduce.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to the council reports. The first is Department of Public Safety. Council President Zambrana, do you have something from
Yes.
Councilman Potter?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So this report has been submitted by Chief Brian Kennelly. First of all, Chief Kennelly would like to wish congratulations to the Joyce Kilmer class of 2023 on a successful Haunted Riverwalk. As several road and utility projects continue throughout the borough, please drive safely and use extreme caution as approved detours pass through residential neighborhoods. We appreciate your patience and cooperation as these repairs and upgrades continue. A reminder that curfews are set for 8 p.m. on October 30th and October 31st for unaccompanied juveniles. There should be no trick-or-treating past 8 p.m. Please drive safely as pedestrian traffic will be increased. Have a happy and safe Halloween. Parents and guardians should be reminded that all borough parks close at dusk with the exception of permitted usage. Any persons within the parks after dusk will be asked to leave by the police. Thank you for your cooperation, Chief Brian Kennelly. That completes my report.
Okay,
Mayor.
thank you. Next, we'll move on to the Department of Utilities. Councilman James Peretti.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, for the Water and Sewer Department, along with the daily work orders, emergency markouts, and daily calls. The department has the following to report. Lead and copper testing is ongoing. Samples are out for collection at the DEP chosen locations. Flushing will be upcoming. Notifications will be sent out. The department is still having difficulty getting new water meters and recorders. They would like to thank the public waiting for new meters for their extended patience. Please go to channel 15 or milltownnj.org for additional water sewer updates. For the electric utility, substation continues to be checked daily. Transformer testing is scheduled for October. Branches were noticed in an overhead wire during a patrol, and they were subsequently removed. Department members had to respond to down wire calls to clear phone and cable TV wires from the sidewalks, and was done so. Department members responded to power outage reports, and problems were determined to be in the dwellings. Several residents have reported streetlight issues. The work now is scheduled for the week of the 24th. Utility department members assisted the water department with maintenance on the pressure valves at Elkins Lane Pumping Station, and they're continuing to work with the water department for a control problem at Elkins Lane Pump House. The utility department is working with the recreation department in the planning and installation of the safety nets to be installed at Michelin Field. The necessary materials have been ordered, poles are already delivered on site, and the NJ1 call excavation notice was initiated. Almost all materials have now been ordered and delivered. They're just waiting on minor delays in receiving the final line work hardware. Bucket truck number 10 is back in service after having some emission problems. Finally, the utility department worked with the billing department to rectify billing issues and replace malfunctioning meters. 1 meter was replaced, and 1 was sent out for additional testing. Always the bi-weekly or bi-monthly reminder that we want to remind the public that electric meters need to be accessible to meter readers. Please trim vegetation in front of meters. Overgrown bushes limit access and can cause estimated bills. There are other options. Residents can always fill out their monthly reading cards and submit them to the billing department, or residents can take pictures of their meters and send them to the following email address: ahamm@milltownborough.com. That's aham@milltownborough.com. Cards are available at the billing office or can be delivered to your mailbox if you request them. And finally, one additional report, courtesy of the AHRC, as a nice reminder, is for those who celebrate, Happy Diwali. Diwali is also known as the Festival of Lights and is one of the most important festivals within Hinduism. It symbolizes the spiritual victory of light over darkness, good over evil, and knowledge over ignorance. The 5-day festival starts today, and we once again hope everyone has a happy and healthy holiday. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next, we have the Department of Public Works and Recycling, Councilwoman Anna Neubauer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Along with all regular sanitation and bulk collections, the DPW has the following to report. The soccer field has been painted for the current season. Mill Pond Park Path was trimmed back and prepped for the Haunted River Walk. Safety material has been added to the park areas around town and will be ongoing as needed. DPW employees participated in the trunk or treat event, handing out candy and giveaways, and as always enjoyed seeing all the kids in their excellent costumes. Resident reminders, there are 2 upcoming holidays. First is Election Day, Tuesday, November 8th. For that, garbage will be collected instead on Wednesday, November 9th. And then on Veterans Day, Friday, November 11th, garbage will be collected instead on Thursday, November 10th. Please help keep catch basins clear of leaves and debris. This helps the flow of water in town keep moving. Leaf bags are available at 50 Washington, Monday through Friday, 50 Washington, which is the DPW, the new DPW building, Monday through Friday from 7:30 a.m. to 3 p.m., and then Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 noon. Please check channel 15 and milltownnj.org for DPW updates. And then secondly, it wasn't on the report, but I just wanted to send out a heartfelt thank you to Ralph, our DPW director, for working with the county to restart the milling and paving program in town. If you drive around town, you probably have seen that Blueberry, Ackerman, a portion of Riva, and a portion of Ford Avenue have all been milled and paved through this program. So really, thank you so much for that, Ralph. And that is all that we have to say.
Thank you. Next, we have the Department of Recreation, Councilwoman Margaret O'Donnell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have several reports tonight. I will begin with just mentioning that the next library board meeting is the second Tuesday in November, coincides with the election day, but it will take place in the library, which is open that day. I have a report from the Director of the Recreation Department, Ron Cephalone, and there are quite a few updates because there's always a lot going on with recreation. Please remember to register for our after-school
Margaret,
program.
hold on one second. Mimi, are we getting feedback from where? Do you all hear that?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I hear it, but I don't.
Maybe near their
Okay, as long, everybody can hear, right? Oh, sorry, maybe. My fault.
Yeah,
There you go. Okay, thank you, Russ. Sorry, Margaret, go ahead.
That's okay. I'm glad the static stopped. And I'll take it from the top.
Okay.
And this is an update from the Department of Recreation. So please remember to register for our after-school program, Mad Science. The program starts on Tuesday, November 15th, and it will be held at the Milltown Senior Center. Registration will close for that on November 7th. Youth basketball registration opened today. Please visit Community Pass to register. Fall soccer and Fundamental Fours program is running smoothly. Team photos were taken on Saturday, October 15th. We'll be hosting a movie night at Borough Park on Friday, November 4th, and the movie is Miracle on 34th Street, a classic. Our Borough tree lighting will be held on December 2nd. Fall yoga has great participation, and our instructor, Marcy, is doing a great job. Our netting project at Michelin Park is underway and will be completed any day now. The new basketball court lines are complete at the Albert Avenue Park, and 2 new pickleball courts have been lined at Michelin Park. Our new electronic billboard in front of the Borough Hall will be installed starting the second week of November. Please be sure to visit the Recreation webpage to familiarize yourself with our upcoming programs and new activities along with all park locations. Please help us wait, I gotta get this right because this is Ron's quote. Please help us continue to make Milltown Recreation a community in motion. And then from the Recreation Advisory Board, which meets on the 3rd Wednesdays of each month here in the Borough Hall. Our last meeting included spirited discussions about Michelin Field, the pool, and program fees. We heard about park improvements and plans for new program launches, and we hope and welcome the public to provide feedback to either committee members, staff, myself, or to come to the meeting and talk to us. The Historic Preservation Committee's next meeting is the 4th Thursday, and that committee meets via Zoom. And that concludes my reports for tonight.
Great, thank you. Next, we have the Department of Environmental, Health, and Social Services, Councilman Rich Revlin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Short report this evening. For the school liaison report, I just want to say that they did host their first strategic planning meeting earlier this month, and we look forward to more of those coming down the line. The next school board meeting is on November 21st. And I do believe that this year there are 3 open spots for school board, but only 2 candidates on the ballot. So if you know someone who'd be interested, other than Daffy Duck or Mickey Mouse, feel free to write them in. For the Environmental Commission, our next meeting will be held this week on Wednesday, October 26th. And regarding revitalization, this is probably the big one around town. Unfortunately, there was a schedule change due to Hurricane Ian and the weather impacts scheduled for October 1st, but from my understanding, we had an absolutely fantastic day the following weekend on October 8th, so thank you for the birthday party and all the volunteers who made it a tremendous success.
Yeah, agree.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Next, we have the Department of Finance, Administration, and Planning, Council President Phil Zambretton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So for the Ford Avenue Redevelopment Agency meeting, it really was going over some of the details that went into explaining why we had to amend the Ford Avenue redevelopment agreement, which we voted on earlier tonight. For finance, I really don't have anything to report at this time. And for the Senior Center, I just want to give a short report from Debbie Cuddy, the director of the Senior Center. And here we go. So as we do each month, we have many programs, including aerobics, line dancing, yoga, tai chi, billiards, walk aerobics, men's club, billiards, women's club, chorus, Spanish, arts and crafts, our monthly VNA nurse monthly visits, and bingo. And still to come this month, in terms of events, are tomorrow, a bus trip to Cracker Barrel for lunch and shopping at 12 p.m., and a lunch and learn presented by John McNamara from Bronson and Guthline on October 26th at 12 p.m. As always, if you need any information or would like to attend any or all of our programs, please call Debbie at 732-296-0681 or by email at dcuddy@milltownborough.com. I just want to remind everyone that you do not have to be a member of the Senior Center to take advantage of the driver for the bus for any appointments, for doctor's appointments, or for shopping. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Administrator report? Jack?
No report tonight.
Okay, thank you. Engineer report, Mr. McClellan?
Yes, Madam Mayor, just 3 items tonight. First issue is regarding West Foch improvements. As you may remember, the borough received a grant from the Department of Transportation, and we have, at the request of the borough administrator, prepared some estimates with updating based upon the new costs that we're receiving in the marketplace. We'd recommend that this issue or this project be scheduled for Public Works Committee to have a discussion on the improvements so we can move forward. There's also a matter of some utility issues with regard to the roadway because of settlement, and that would also be discussed at that time. Okay. Second on our list is work included on Clayton Court. Generally includes the reconstruction of the road, and the mayor and council awarded it tonight to BlackRock. I'd like to thank the borough administrator for her efforts in finding available funds to award the project. The project did come in a little higher than originally anticipated because of the supply chain issues that everybody's experiencing. And lastly, design work continues on the next phase of the water system improvements, which is generally in Highland Drive. We have some valve work to do and some other minor work that has to be done. We're planning on, as originally discussed, a project that completes design through the wintertime, gets permits, and goes out for bid, and hopefully starts construction in early spring. So that's where we are.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah. Mike, Clayton Court, is there any estimated time that it's going to start? Ballpark?
It's a couple of things on Clayton. There's some drainage work that can be done. The concern we have is the residents being inconvenienced through the holidays and through the winter time. So generally, now that it's awarded, we'll have a pre-construction with the contractor, work with borough officials to see how you want to try and handle it. Work can be done through the winter time. It's ideal in some cases that the residents then suffer because they can't get into driveways, icing conditions, and snow. So we'll let the borough discuss that and decide how you want to do it. The contractor is ready to go. It can be done through the winter time. And the pipe work could be done. It's just the inconvenience of the residents is a concern only. So, either that or he'll get his supplies. He's got shop road to do, getting ready and first thing springtime.
Will there be like a conversation with each of the homeowners on Clayton Court before, like just to keep them up to speed on what's going or what's coming?
Yeah, usually what happens, once the pre-construction meetings happen, then a notice will be sent out to the residents with review with your administrator before it goes out, so they'll get an idea of what's going on. We'll let them know. If it's going to be held off till springtime, we'll at least advise that there is work that can be done. As I said, shop drawings today is a whole process, and then getting supplies. Pipe work, concrete pipe today is very difficult to get. It's reinforcing steel is a complication. So, there's all kinds of things that can be done to try and expedite it, but that's one of the issues we deal with today. So, while I'd like to see it start, I just am concerned about the inconvenience of the register.
Well, it's a court, so there's one way in, there's one way out.
That's right, exactly right.
Thank you.
Okay.
How long does a project like that take?
Probably about 90 days, depending on the contract. BlackRock, as you know, does a lot of work in Milltown, and they're very good. They know what to do. They know what to run across. So I just see it 90 days should be clean, but not full active. It's just start to finish. That's about the time.
Okay.
And Mike, just curious as far as the final restoration of the asphalt on that project, is there a recommended time that you would suggest we follow for that, considering the frost heaves and cracking and associated
supply or availability of the asphalt during the winter months?
Yeah, we would probably do base, if they do start some work, we do stabilized base, and then the top would be put in the warmer months. You can't really put top until like April. Plants are generally closed, and winter time can go through and create havoc on hot new asphalt.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Totally.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
Attorney report, Mr. Vignola?
No report tonight, thank you.
Okay, back to me. So just quickly, I will say that, hearing all the reports, it's very refreshing to see that all of the committees are getting so much accomplished, and also to see the committees and the departments that are working together. For example, the DPW and the recreation, to see that the basketball courts have been repaved, that we have the pickleball, that the Albert Avenue gazebos have been repaired. It's something that I know I've heard about since I joined the council 5 years ago, so it's very gratifying to see those groups work together, as well as the milling and paving, and to see the utility work that's upcoming that we've been anxiously awaiting, and I know residents have as well. So that's very, very nice to see, as it is nice to see all the community members come together. So I had the pleasure of being out and around this weekend at many events, and it's very nice to see how many people really care about our town, care about the organizations. I had the pleasure to go start Saturday morning at the Lions Club breakfast, and then move on to the trunk or treat, where I saw our police, our fire department, our rescue squad, our DPW, there to help an organization that helps school children with extra programs, and so my hat's off to them for putting on such a nice event for kids. And then I got to move on to the St. Paul's 150th celebration and finished up with the Haunted River Walk in the evening, which it was a beautiful night, and I don't think I've ever seen so many people waiting in line for tickets. So I hope that they did well. But it just goes to show how much people care about their organizations, about their town, about their school. And so it was a really nice weekend, and I'm happy to see that so many folks are working together for the betterment of our town. So I thank you. With that, I will close my comments and wish you all, by the way, a happy Halloween and a happy Diwali. And we will be back after Election Day. So our next meeting will be November 14th here. So I will move on to old business. Does any member of the council have any old business to bring before the council this evening?
Just one question. I know we brought this up a couple months ago, and I think we hit a bit of a stalemate with some ownership or title concerns, but with regard to the trestle over here and trying to develop something for the next year and the year after, when we can finally address it, what steps do we need to take? And Mike and Peter, this one's kind of directed towards you guys, because I think it's more of an engineering and legal perspective than it is necessarily a council's desire to take action. So,
Well, it's funny you say that, because we actually had a few people here we had a meeting beforehand to discuss it, and we're sort of, and we have our resident expert who's been digging into it. But I don't think that we've gotten the full, we've done a little digging, but we don't have the full answer yet. But the steps, it's a point of,
yeah, I mean, are we going to need to take some action to authorize any expenditure in order to get these title searches done, or to find out where we can go next, or like where are we at with trying to put something together?
You might want to start to see what the borough's desire is with regard to the trestle. In other words, if you remove it, are you planning on putting a bridge there later on, or is it basically going to be removed? I think that's maybe one place you want to start. The trestle is obviously is in very bad shape. In fact, Mr. Toth tonight spoke about it. So it obviously needs some attention. I don't believe it's the borough's trestle from our perspective. We haven't done any independent searches on ourselves on an engineering basis or even a land surveying basis, but certainly that's our understanding. So the question is, what would you prefer to have happen? If you remove it, then obviously the owner of the trestle should be consulted, but I believe it's the heirs and signs of Michelin Tire and Rubber, and is our understanding, and it would basically be a notice to have them done, but there's going to be some cost to do it. to take it out there. It's, easy, over, I'd say closer to $100,000 probably to get a crane in there and pull it out. So.
Mr. Vignolo, any guidance on how to do a title search or find out?
Well, title search is easy. That's just calling the title company and asking them to do the search. The question then is what they get to once they start digging. So, and again, it's the council's appetite as to what they want to do with respect to the issue, because obviously it's not the borough's trestle, at least from everything that everyone's kind of looked at over the years. So, number one, you would need to figure out who owns it and then figure out really what you want to do once you know who owns it. So, and until you really know where you're going to go, it's a question of how much money you want to spend, on your way there. So, certainly, I know Mr. McClellan and I can, move forward with things, but the question is, where do we want to get to? And it may be beneficial to know that before we start, so we know whether or not we're really, spending good money.
Okay.
My thought here is that I think there is an appetite, and correct me if I'm wrong, and the rest of you guys can all speak to it, but I think there's an appetite to do something. And I'm just wondering, what initial steps we would have to take. So it sounds to me like the title search is still the very first step, if there is consensus here that we want to do something. That's kind of holding us back to know even what we can do before we start thinking about grand plans or whatever it may be. So is there an estimated cost or an average cost for that? Does it get more complex and increase as we find out that we have no idea who owns it?
Well, the question, I know that there's railroad sidings that run along those properties, and I would think that if we start with just who is or isn't paying taxes on those would be a good initial starting point, and then we can figure out whether or not we have someone who thinks they own it. Because my guess is we have a property owner on Ford Avenue who is probably the beneficiary of that siding that runs, from Raritan Railroad down to that property. So to the extent that that is probably where it ended up, that may be the owner of that trestle, in which case, we can certainly start negotiations, but as we've learned with Ford Avenue, I'm not sure negotiations are going to get us to an end we want to get to anytime soon, in which case you've then got to decide what other steps you do or don't want to take. I know you have just recently hired a new zoning officer / property maintenance officer, and to the extent that the issue could also fall within the ambit of that person's role, that might be another place to start.
Well, and that then furthers it, is that how do we even say, okay, we've noticed an issue here that may be worthy of a fine or penalty or require some action, but we don't even know who to send the notification to. And I think that's kind of, we keep falling back to the ownership aspect. So. Right.
So the ownership would be the first thing, and then, so I would ask that maybe the finance, administration, planning, which has code enforcement under it, and also we can, talk about getting it into the budget, that could discuss at their next meeting, moving ahead with maybe doing a title search and then addressing the enforcement of it until such time that comes back and we have some further direction.
We're at that time of the year where basically, 2022 is going to be over pretty soon, and we're getting ready to gear up for 2023, so it's something that we could...
Well, that's why I'd like to put it on, into our fore minds instead of the rear, so that we can plan for next year. But
so if you could do that and maybe report back, before the end of the year, just to, and then bring it to the full council, that would be great.
Are there, and excuse my ignorance, but is there a changing cost to title searches? Is it a flat fee, and if they wind up doing 40 hours of work, so be it? Or is it kind of a combination of, well, we didn't get the answers here, and more of an hourly rate, or how many?
Typically, they're going to pay a searcher to do the search, so to the extent, I don't know what's going to be involved, because the trestle itself probably isn't a property parcel, although we can check to see if it's part of improvements on one of the lots that you're looking at on either side. So
border it,
yeah. So I think that would be a decent starting point, trying to figure out which tax lots we want to kind of examine to see if it's perhaps an improvement associated with one of them. But as with anything else, it is a function of what the amount of time someone's going to spend doing it.
Okay.
So usually it's not going to be we'll do your title search for $99.99. They'll probably tell you that if it's going to get involved, they're going to
Yeah, I didn't want to talk about how much how little we know, just in case someone thinking 99.99 is out there.
No, no,
Get the bar
Go ahead,
right.
take it.
And this has come up before. The Milltown Historic Preservation Committee has brought this up several times, and I've reported on their interest in knowing this, but their end game is more of preservation, not necessarily removing it, which, so we definitely have to figure out what our intent is, as Mr. McClellan mentioned.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any old business? If not, we will close old business and move on to new business. Does any member of the council have any new business to bring before the council this evening? Hearing none, I will close new business and move on to audience comments. The public comment portion of our meeting is to allow the public to bring to the council's attention their concerns or comments. The council will respect the public's time by refraining any comment until the speaker has finished. It should be further noted that the public comment portion of our meeting is not structured as a question and answer session. If a member has a specific question they seek answers to, an appointment can be made with the appropriate office. Please state your name and address for the record when you come to the podium. Yes.
Lee Weisenberger, 99 JFK Drive.
Good evening.
Just curious, a couple things, now that the trestle came up too, but first, the water pipe underneath the turnpike, is that pipe in commission or is it out of commission?
Pipe is out of commission, it had a break in it, and the borough has isolated it.
So our water's coming which way now?
It comes from the tank, as it always has. You had 2 feeds, one on Main Street and one at the turnpike. Now you have just the Main Street feed.
Okay. And,
It's working fine, I'm happy to report.
right, and then Patane and Hague, those original contract prices are holding,
Yes,
even with the delay and all
that's
that?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. At this point, we brought up the trestle. Been doing a lot of research, some dead ends, some not dead ends. I'd like to thank our borough clerk, doing a little research in her office, and this goes back now, I believe 1986, 1987. She has a title search in her office, and it pertains to a property behind the rescue squad. So, where the park is. And that search includes the 45 deed with Alsaw, who owns everything. Okay? Like I said, if you start with that, because that's where everything seems to tie in, it would go back, I believe, that Mr. Berger would own it. But once again, the wording in the deeds that I've seen is very confusing. And right now, I believe Wells Fargo Bank owns that and doesn't know it. They own part of it. Because they're paying taxes on that property and not Mr. Berger. But Mr. Berger is paying on the track over here, but that ends at the trestle, which is really strange. Like I said, I've been looking at a lot of deeds, what I can access only online. Like I said, a title search by a professional, I think, is going to turn up a lot of the same stuff. But like I said, everything is not online.
I'm aware.
Yeah. So, and like I said, crisscrossing for a long time now, many different ownerships here, what went on. When the traction barn was there, and the different ownerships under those, like I said, when you start piecing this all together, you come up with the dates. We're interested in the trestle now, and I was down here the other day, just behind the post office, dumb luck, I'll bring it up now. I went down there to check on the fish, see what's going on in the creek. I happened to look at the rail right there for the track. The track is dated, that rail is dated. The rail on the trestle is 1917. The rail before it is 1914. So that gives you a pretty good timeline when that was constructed.
Right.
And that ties in to when the dam was built. 1917 again, 18. And that makes sense. Okay? So, as a starting point, I'll give that to you.
So you're bidding on the 99.99 title search job?
Well, you know.
You should get something for his
It's fascinating when you start looking at stuff once again.
You've
and
done
another
it
offshoot comes up and
you've
you're
done a
like,
lot
wow,
of
there's a
work.
lot of people
No,
interested in this kind of stuff.
it's appreciated.
And they'd love to get a piece of that rail too, with
Yeah.
that date on it, you know? And as I brought up before, either, I would love to contact Mr. Berger now, or somebody for access to that property. Now, I don't know if all the rail has been taken up over there, or a piece of it, because that rail is dated. And that'll tell us when the first rail went into the Myers plant.
No.
And I think that would be fascinating to know.
Well, you've been really stuck to it, and, you know, we appreciate it, and, you know, it's
Well, like I
it's
said,
complicated.
once again,
to
a
say
title
the
search
least.
at this point would include that dam,
Yeah.
I think.
Okay,
You know,
Yep.
it's gonna come up,
we'll take a look.
so
Yep.
I appreciate it.
No, thanks for all your
Thank you.
effort, appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Anyone else? Yes. That's all right. Good evening.
John Collins, 39 Brook Drive, Milltown, New Jersey, 08850. I'd like to thank Councilwoman O'Donnell about voting against hiring a full-time inspector. We've done it with 2 inspectors that are part-time, and we could use interlocal agreements if we have to. I have a question, too, about the water meters. Have we ever looked into the electronic water meters or electric meters instead of paying a full-time worker to go out and read the meters?
The in-home meters that we're working on to replace are all smart meters. So
Smart meters.
every meter that goes in is a new smart meter now.
Okay, thanks, that's a good idea.
Only for the water though, right? Not-
Correct, only water for now. Electric is still, that's phase 2. Right now, water is just phase 1, yeah.
Just electric,
The
okay,
idea is
thanks.
to do that electric as well.
Thanks. And about that trestle, I remember when I sat on council, Councilman Farkas called the railroad to remove the tracks across the bridge. So I don't know if the railroad has a right-of-way in there.
From the deeds that I have seen, the property that's owned by Wells Fargo, I think before that it was even referenced as Wachovia property, but they have the right-of-way indicated through the property, but it doesn't say right-of-way for whom. It just says railroad right-of-way, so whether it's Conrail or an independent or part of the old Raritan River Railroad, that's been another question of who owns it, who it belongs to, and who can we contact to find out some information.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Mike a question. Is it possible we can elevate it, Mike, so we can keep the historic value to the town? And make a walkway over? It is possible. Is it cheaper? That's not the answer I wanted to hear. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I will close audience comments and go to council comments. Does any member of the council have any final comments?
Just one, and actually, it's in regard to Mr. Weisenberger. I appreciate all you've done. It's amazing, you know, we talk about all the volunteers in this town who come together for events and things, but every meeting you've got a little bit more information for us that none of us have ever known. So I want to thank you for your efforts. I think it's a tremendous asset to the town. It just shows that we have so many residents who do care, so thank you.
Yep, agree.
Agreed.
He's a true detective on this. Appreciate it. Anyone else have any final comments? Seeing none, I will close comments and take a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Newbauer, second by Councilman Revelinsky. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
You too.
Whoa.